So you're overmixing your cakes, and in my case, I did not even know that you're overmixing your cakes, and in my case, that sounded like I made a mistake. So hello beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Oluchi. Imoh. On this channel I share tips on how you can grow your cake business. I talk about entrepreneurship, personal development. I do story time and vlogs as well, and you're welcome to today's video. So in this video I'll be sharing with you 5 baking mistakes to avoid. Now if you're interested in knowing what these mistakes are, probably been making them, then you definitely want to keep on watching, as I'll be right back to share with you. You're welcome back. To my new and old subscribers, I'm so happy to have you here, and I am excited that you're with me, joining me for today's video. So we're talking about 5 baking mistakes to avoid, and I want to go right into this mistakes. The number one mistake I see that you're making, or most bakers make, is that they work with is it imbalanced or unbalanced? They work with recipes that are not balanced. Like you have a recipe of, say for example, 500 grams of butter, 500 grams of sugar, like that. You have like maybe 12 eggs thereabouts, and then you're seeing something like 2 teaspoons of baking powder, or you're seeing 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Like, I don't want to go deep into the science, but from common reasoning, common knowledge, you know that that baking powder, the quantity of baking powder that you have to work with that recipe is not going to be enough to make any reasonable difference when it comes to giving or leavening or raising, you know, that particular cake. Is not going to work. Like, it's not balanced. It's not balanced. I don't want to go off of the top of my head because I really don't know what your recipe might be like, but if you take a critical look at it, it might be that something is just off. I look at some recipes, people reach out to me and say, oh, this is issue I'm having with my cake, this is what is happening, it's crumbly, it breaks, it doesn't work, it's soft, it's this, it's that. And I sometimes say, okay, let me see your recipe. Sometimes I say, walk me through your mixing process, or how do you do this, or how do you mix it. Sometimes I check, and just by looking at it, I know that this recipe is not balanced. You're definitely going to run into issues with this kind of recipe. So if you're learning, if you're self-taught, please ensure that you put effort into testing and trying this thing and knowing what works for you exactly, knowing how to get this recipes balanced, or better still, register with a professional and learn, save up the money. I know that some people would say, oh, I don't have the cash at the moment, I cannot afford it, it's expensive and all, but please ensure that you save up and get proper training from a professional. That's the key word. Don't just put your money anywhere, and at the end of the day you're still having the same issues and there's no solution to your problem. Please ensure that you get your recipes, training, you get the solid foundation, you get the right foundation from a professional, and so you not have these issues when it comes to your baking. Like I said, most times the recipes are not balanced. If you have something like 1 teaspoon baking powder or 1 teaspoon baking soda to such a high amount, or amount of butter or sugar or whatever it is, you definitely would run into issues because it is not balanced. From mere looking at it, you know that this one is not correct, it's not going to work. Now, the second mistake I see bakers make is over mixing their cakes. Now, I've also been a victim of this, or I've also made the same mistakes. No, I wasn't a victim, I made this mistake. So you're over mixing your cakes, and in my case, I did not even know that you're over mixing your cakes, and in my case, that sounded like I made a mistake. So you're over mixing your cakes, and you're thinking that you're doing it right. So like in my case, I felt I was doing it right. The batter, the cake batter will be so liquidy, so silky, so nice for a particular cake, not for everything. So it will be so nice, and then it will just be going like that in the pan. I didn't know that I was hurting myself. I didn't know that I was over mixing it. So the thing is this, when you begin to add in your flour, I believe that this works for most cake recipes. I don't know about other cake recipes, but for me, I've learned that when I start adding my cake, like incorporating the dry ingredients, which is the flour, I should put my mixer to the lowest speed. So it's more like you're folding it in with your hands. You know, the folding in process, it's a careful process. It's one that doesn't require you to, that you don't do it with force. You don't exert so much force and pressure when you're doing it. So it's something that requires you to do it with gentle, you know, gentleness and care. TLC. You need to do it with some TLC. You need to give your batter that TLC. So don't overmix, like you're introducing your flour and your mixer is still on the highest speed and it's just going round and round and round and round and round, and you think I'm getting it right. So my cake recipe was fine in the beginning, but at the end I started encountering this challenge. When I bake my cakes, it would come out dense and it would shrink. It would shrink from its original size. It was bad. It was really bad, and I was going through this tough time alone because I didn't know who to run to. I didn't even know who I could talk to. It was really bad. It was bad. The taste was on point. The taste was not so bad, but I knew that this recipe is, the results I get with this recipe is quite different from what I'm getting now. It's not supposed to shrink. It's not supposed to be this dense. What's happening? And then I said, okay, today I'm going to try things differently. I'm going to do things differently. So what I did was that when I started introducing my flour, in fact, from the beginning, I did not overmix my flour and my butter and my sugar. I tried to just cut short the time, ensure that it mixed properly. Yeah, it was mixed well, but I didn't do that long, mixing. And then when I started adding my flour, I just put the speed to the lowest, and it just kept going. It will take time, but it's better for you than you overmixing your batter, because at the end of the day you end up with a dense cake and some other things might just go wrong. So please quit overmixing your cake batter. When you're doing it, ensure that you mix not for so long, and then on the flip end, you don't undermix it. If you undermix it, you're still going to run into issues. I don't know what issues you can run into or issues you're having, but I know I've encountered or I've had that challenge of overmixing my cake batter, and this is what really happens. So please don't overmix. Mistake number 3 is to avoid, how do I put it? Don't forget to scrape the sides of your bowl. It's an essential part of baking that you should not miss out, you should not forget, you should not leave, you should not avoid. Ensure that you scrape the sides of your bowl, like scrape the sides. Yes, and then scrape downwards. So scrape downwards using your silicone spatula. Ensure that you scrape so that everything will be properly incorporated and all your ingredients will be properly mixed. If not, you would have patches and lumps of cake, flour, batter that wasn't properly mixed. Ensure that you mix very well and you scrape down the sides when you're doing that. Okay, the first mistake you're making is that you're not greasing your pan very well. If you don't grease your pan very well, depending on the method you use, your cake will get stuck to the pan, and when it gets stuck to the pan, in most cases it will break. As you're turning it out of your pan, as you're struggling to get it out, it gets stuck to the pan, and when you're bringing it out, it will just break into pieces, can split into two, it can decide to take any form. Now you want to avoid this because it's not a pleasant experience. So you ensure that you grease your sides very well. For us, we grease our pan first. We grease the pan first and then put the parchment paper and then grease again with margarine or butter and then grease the sides as well. Ensure that you grease the sides as well so that if you bring out your cake from the oven, you give it some few minutes to cool, you turn it out, you are good to go. You will not have any cakes breaking or splitting, or you don't have any issues like that. So please ensure that you grease the sides of your pans well. Now the 5th mistake you're making with your baking is that you're not trying to how will I put it now? I don't know if it's to call it a mistake, but ensure that or try to seal in the moisture when you bake your cakes. It will help it, retain that soft tenderness when you cut through, when you cut open, like it will not dry out. So when you bake, don't allow your cakes just be like out in the open. Try to close it. I recently started doing this. It's called the sealing in method or the seal in method. I don't know what exactly I should call it, but it's sealing in. When you bring it out of the oven, you give it some time to cool in the pan, just some few minutes. Just some minutes to cool in the pan, then you turn it out, then you cover it with a pan. We at the bakery, we cover with a pan and then allow it to cool with that method. It won't go bad. I was thinking before and I used to think, oh, the cake will go bad, but no, it wouldn't go bad. It will help increase and enhance the moistness of your cake. So please try to do this, seal in the moisture of your cakes. I know some people wrap immediately. I don't know how that works, but I've heard of people, someone said she would wrap immediately and then put it in the freezer. Putting it in the freezer also helps with the moistness, but ensure that you're doing it right so that your cakes don't go bad with this method. Okay, seal in, it helps traps the moisture and it will cool naturally by itself and your cake will be moist and tender. Now, because I'm nice, I'm going to share one more tip with you, and that is letting your cakes stay in the oven for too long. Like, okay, there are two ends of this, right? You're allowing your cake stay in the oven for too long, they will get dry, they'll get burnt. And then you're opening your oven too early, like you're not waiting for the right time for, you're not waiting up to 30 minutes, you're not waiting up to 45 minutes, you're opening it too early. Now, if you open your oven too early, open your oven door too early, what will happen is that air would get in and your cakes would fall, especially if you open it when it's at that point where it's rising, it will fall and the middle will sink in. So you do not want that. Do not leave your cakes in the oven for too long, and do not open it too early. The time should be right. If you're just starting out, please study and know how long it takes for your cakes to bake. We all work with different recipes, and then we work with different timings as well, work with different oven temperatures as well. If you're using a fabricated oven, which is common in Nigeria here, ensure that you get an oven thermometer. When I was still working from the house, because it did not have quite it had a regulator, but it did not have the degrees stated. So what I would just do to be on the safe side, after one or two burnt cake experiences, burnt cake experiences, was start using the blue flames. So I bake with the blue flames alone. And even when I got my fabricated oven, it was still the same thing. My cakes were just getting roasted in quotes, like getting burnt. And I had to buy an oven thermometer that will help you with the right temperature to work with. So study. I cannot give an advice because I do not know what kind of oven you use. I don't know the intensity of the heat, whatever, it is that's particular to your oven, but you need to study it yourself and know how it works for you. So I believe that these tips will be able to, with these tips that help bring some enlightenment and education to you, and you know what to do when it comes to baking. There are a lot more, but for now, let's work with this 5 and the bonus I've sent, and I hope that it will be of great benefits and value to you. Please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on notification, give this video a thumbs up, and share with your friends in your Facebook and your WhatsApp groups. Please subscribe and show some love. Let me know what challenge you're having with your baking in the comments, and I'll be able to help to the best of my knowledge. Also, let me know what points you liked best, or what points or number that you could relate with. Until I see you in, do stay happy, stay safe, and stay blessed.